This is a short introduction to rubrics. It's just because I believe rubrics are such a strong tool in helping students self-assess, peer assess, and to understand those key qualities that Heidi speaks of is clear expectations and the visualization of excellence. I don't think anything does it like a rubric. Um, so designing rubrics, students as self-assessors, and teachers as focused coaches. Now, what is a rubric? A rubric is a guideline for rating student performance. Now, why teachers find rubrics so hard to do when they first start is because we really haven't clarified in our own minds. We're not able to articulate what a quality product looks like. For example, I'm a science teacher. I get a bunch of lab reports, and I said, oh, this is definitely an A lab report. Okay, this is probably a C minus. Oh, this one's an F, totally an F. But if you ask me specifically, say out clearly, what is the difference? Then I struggle. I say, well, this one's obviously quality and this one isn't. Well, that may be obvious to me, but it is not obvious to the learner. And if you don't use rubrics for many products, you end up being unfair. And so rubrics are very important to articulate to yourself and to your students. Although they can be used as a grading tool, and definitely, I grade all my projects, anything that is not multiple choice or straight answer, to me is done by rubric. Even if I have an essay question, I put out a short rubric because if I don't know what I'm looking for, how can I expect the student to know what I'm looking for? So, but you can use it for grading, but you can also use it just to help students understand what quality is and to assess themselves. If we can take grading and assessment and kind of separate them, assessing help them evaluate their work to see what is strong and not so strong. Okay, the benefits of a rubric. Rubric provides those doing the assessment with exactly the characteristics for each level of performance on which they should base their judgment. In other words, you're not just saying, oh, I'm thinking this is a B paper, when last night when I'd had a little rest, it was an A paper. It makes you specify those things. The rubric provides those who have been assessed with clear information about how well they performed. They understand what they did right and what they did wrong. The rubric also provides those who have been assessed with a clear indication of what they need to accomplish in the future to better their performance. And I'm going to say right now that I believe students should always have the rubric before they do the assignment so that so they're not surprised so they don't simply not meet your expectations because they didn't know what those expectations were. Our rubric must define the range of possible performances, lowest to highest. Usually there's points associated, but I'll show you in a rubric in a little while. It can be more, it doesn't have to be associated with points, although it usually is. It's a lesson in quality, a public declaration of expectation, a communication tool, a self-assessment tool for learners, a gauge for examining performance, and a self-fulfilling prophecy. We've talked about most of those others, but a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you look at a rubric, if you put it out there, try it just as an experiment. Give students an assignment and see the quality. Give a similar assignment. Give them a rubric beforehand, or even better, let them help you design the rubric, and then look at the quality. It soars because students know what quality looks like. Okay, rubrics versus checklists. Oh, please get this clear. So this is a friendly letter. This is the checklist. Date, flush left at top, address, greeting, body, salutation, signature. Okay. And you can't use a checklist to show quality or to assess. Just because they do it doesn't mean they did it well. And please get away from, if you give students a description of the assignment, that's not a rubric. That doesn't describe quality. That says the minimum requirements for getting it done. It says nothing about getting it done well. Checklists do not have a judgment of quality. Checklists can only be used when present or absent is sufficient criterion for quality, and I don't know when that is. I've never had it in my classroom. Just turning it in is not good enough. Rubrics include descriptors for each targeted criterion. They say, I'm looking for this criterion and this and this and this. I need you to show me that you can do these things. And then it says, this is how you show that in a very great way. This is a way that I cannot accept. Okay, so what are the parts of a rubric? They have the standards of excellence. That's how many points you get across the way. The criteria, what it is I'm looking for, and these are going to reflect your objectives. And the indicators or descriptors, which tell you what quality looks like. We'll see that better when we look at the rubrics. The specific areas for assessment, those are the criteria. The focus, the areas of instruction. It's clear and relevant, age appropriate, and form and function represented. In other words, when you decide what you're going to grade on, make sure that it reflects your objectives, that it's age appropriate, and that everybody understands what it means. In other words, these are your objectives. Your objectives ought to show up in those criteria. Okay, I'm going to put this in the show right here because I want you to do this with me. Okay, criteria. For example, say I am asking for a 3-paragraph autobiography. I could write this beforehand and give it to the students, but if you will take the time to do it with the students, you will be stunned at their growth in their knowledge of what quality looks like and their ability to meet that. We might discuss it and say, okay, so what do I want in, what would be good to have in this? What's going to be a perfect, wonderful autobiography when you turn it in? Students are going to say it has 3 paragraphs. Well, I'm going to push them to say, so what if those paragraphs don't say anything? Okay, so it say, you can encourage them to get around to saying content. Let's put in here, oops, criteria. We're going to say the content. What is the perfect 3 well-developed paragraphs that have all the information we discussed, that all the information required, see checklist, DEVELOP, and then I'm going to encourage them to push further and say, all are interesting. So that's really, really, or we may make that an interest. We'll say, okay, content, 3 well-developed paragraphs that all have the information. Then we can say 3 paragraphs. Most of the information required is there. And you can pull the students into helping you say this, get their ideas and help them expand them until they can do over. Does not have 3 paragraphs, or they do not have the information required. And then, okay, 3 paragraphs, but much of the information required is missing. So you can work with the students until they can kind of get an idea. And here we might say, criteria interest. Get the students to help you talk about it and say, okay, what do we want as far as interest? All paragraphs, all 3 paragraphs are interesting and have important details, very uninteresting, almost no details, and so forth and so on. So getting the students to tell you what should go here, the students, then they go to write their paper and they know exactly what it's supposed to look like. And then they can finish if it was a target excellent, or if they're going to need to do it over. They can this is a great opportunity for peer evaluation because they can exchange papers and get feedback from a friend, and a friend can say, wait, this paragraph doesn't have very many details. I don't find it very interesting. Oh, okay, I can work on that. So by the time they give it to you, they have worked their very hardest to provide something that meets your expectations. As a class, you have said what a quality paper looks like, and they know what it looks like. So, how do rubrics alter? Notice it says alter instructions. The use of rubrics actually changes the way you do instruction. The teacher commits to teaching quality. It's not enough that they turn it in. It's got to be moving towards quality. The teacher commits to assisting the student to self-assess. And remember what a high impact factor that has. The focus is in each product and their performance. The labels are removed from students. In other words, you are not a bad writer. This piece of writing lacks these elements. So the focus is on the work and on the specific elements of the quality of the work. Specificity appears in all communication. Everyone gives and receives feedback. Who does a rubric assist? Students, teachers, and remember it goes to coaching, focus coaching to the learner. They can get better. It's a system that promotes consistent and meaningful and fair feedback over time. And it's a communication tool for parents. If you send an essay, a product, something home, and they got a B on it, the parent doesn't know what that means. But a rubric where it says there weren't enough details, there wasn't enough expression, is specific and fair feedback that everyone understands. Thank you. I hope this was helpful.